Jacob Stimmel, and I'm from Bulls Gap, Tennessee. I was looking for a house, and Jason, when I talked to him, it seemed like he knew a lot about what he was talking about, and he was a big help with anything I ever needed. It was my first time buying a house, so I didn't know what I was getting into. It was a good experience. I closed actually a week earlier than planned. Anytime I needed help with anything or had any questions, he'd answer right away and help me learn a lot too. I would gladly recommend anybody. Y'all are a big help, and if I ever go to buy a house again, I'd go with y'all again. My name is Jacob Stimmel, and I got into my first home with the team at SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 212, non-equal housing lender. SaveWithConrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad, the mortgage guy, and you're listening to Have More Money Now. And of course, we couldn't do it without the WWE champion and Hall of Famer himself, Mr. John Layfield. John, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, Conrad. Having a blast talking about finance is one of the things I love talking about. It's so much fun. I've always enjoyed talking about stuff like this and reading about stuff like this. So this is a lot of fun to me.
We have had a lot of fun. We greatly appreciate you guys tuning in and checking us out. I want to encourage you to hit the subscribe button and tell a friend about Have More Money Now. It's easy to subscribe. Just go to havemoremoneynow.com. That's our totally free YouTube. And by the way, when you hit that subscribe button, we want to get you a chance to win an autographed copy of John's book. The name of the book, Have More Money Now. Just tag us on X at Have More Show and show us a screenshot where you have subscribed to our YouTube channel. And you too could be our next big winner. We did this last week, and I want to announce that Shayla Daniels Davis, you have an autographed book headed your way. We greatly appreciate your support. I've seen great feedback from people who I don't think knew exactly what to expect with you and I, John, but they seemed pleased.
They seem pleased, which is wonderful. You know, so many people don't understand finance, and that's not because of a lack of intelligence, it's lack of education. And I was the same way. You know, I went to school and, typical liberal arts degree, which is absolutely useless in the world today. And so I came out of school after 3.5, 4 years, left early to go play a little pro football. I never did graduate. I'm one semester short, and I don't think I'll ever go back for that exact reason. We do a great job telling people about history, which is important. Telling people about Shakespeare, which may or may not be important. We do very little telling people about how to handle their finances, which is one of the most important things that people need to be able to do. And we do a horrible job of educating people. It's one of the reasons I wrote the book, because I was in the same boat. You get through life and get through college, all of a sudden you start getting money. You have no idea what to do with it, how to save, how to balance a checkbook, how to get rid of debt, what kind of debt is okay debt. It's something that's a learned trait. And we don't do a very good job of educating people.
Well, that's why we're here. We're here to sort of make it fun and palatable and interesting. And John, people absolutely loved it a couple of weeks ago where you broke down some of your favorite stocks, why you've invested in them, why you've hung in there as long as you have, why you continue to invest in them. And I think you've got some pro tips for us today too, don't you?
Yes, I do. I got all kinds of stuff on gambling stocks. We're going to go through a bunch of the gambling platforms, a bunch of the gambling stocks themselves, about what makes these things either value or not value, and what is going on with the poly market, the prediction market. It's being called kind of like crypto is being called, is being used, Bitcoin is being used with crypto. Same thing with poly market. It's kind of used for prediction market, but it's one of the prediction markets, along with Kalshi is the other big one. But how they are influencing sports betting and how that's going to change things. But it influences everything. I mean, right now, 74% is the accretion of how much better the prediction markets were than political polls. I mean, the world is changing completely.
I can't wait for us to talk about that. I know we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about gambling, and I think you've even got our stock tip of the week. And
I got a bunch of them. We got a bunch of stocks we're going to go through with all the different stock platforms and why I think they're good and why I think that you should have one over the other. And we're going to go through a bunch of them.
Well, let's get kicked off with one. Which one would you like to start with, John?
Let me start with Flutter. Flutter is a company, and here's one of the things about it. Flutter has a high of 313 over the last 52 weeks, low of 122. It's got a stock value, a stock target of about 273, which is up over 200% from here in the next year. Now, the one thing you got to watch with stock predictions is because these guys have to work with these companies. And I'm not taking a shot at them here, but for very good reasons. They're not going to make these low, because if you make these low, the CEO will sit there and look at you and go, you have a $200 valuation on my stock. This guy has a $300 valuation. Who is that CEO going to meet with? He's going to meet with the guy who is more optimistic about his company. So it tends to lend itself to be more optimistic than what it maybe should be. But a lot of these are pretty good to able take and look at them in aggregate and see what they are. But the stock prediction for this in the next 52 weeks is to go back up to retrace its highs. Not sure it will. We'll go into why that is in just a minute.
Now, Flutter, this is the company that owns FanDuel. Is that right?
That's right. It owns FanDuel, owns Paddy Power, owns Betfair. This is like when you're dealing with things like DraftKings, you're dealing with things like MGM, Caesars, Penn Gaming. You're dealing with a bunch of companies that are basically in North America only. Flutter is globally. So the global market this past year was somewhere around 120 to 150 billion legally. The illegal market was probably 2 to 4x that. And what you're seeing now is because gambling is becoming legal everywhere. I mean, you're seeing certain things like Nigeria is becoming this sports betting mecca because all of a sudden it becomes legal and people have their cell phones and now they can gamble. You're starting to see that around the globe. And Flutter is one of the best global bets on gambling that there is.
Now, John, as a novice, I got to say, when I take a look at the Flutter stock price, I see over the last year, it's down like quite a bit.
Yeah.
Why are you so bullish on something that if I just look at Google right now, it says it's down 57% in the last year. You feel like the best is yet to come, though.
Yeah, you have a market cap of around 21 billion, a revenue of about 15 billion, a PE of about 13, and the PE is the price to earning multiple is what it is. It's just a simple algebraic equation. You take the price of the stock by the earnings per share and divide that gets you the PE. So, for example, it's very simple. It sounds a little more complicated than it is. If you have a $50 share price, $2 earnings per share, you just divide that, and that gets you 25. 50 divided by 2. That gets you the PE multiple. And the average PE multiple in the S&P over the last 10 years has been 18.8. Long term, it's a little bit shorter than that. Right now, it's about 24. So the PE multiple is pretty high right now. That's a lot of ways how you value the stock, because you look at the share price divided by the earnings. It's very simple, very straightforward. And the PE of Flutter right now is 13. So it's not quite half of what the S&P is, but it's pretty close. And so I think you see some real value here in just simply that the stock has been too much punished because of the prediction markets, particularly Poly Market and Kalshi.
That's interesting. You know, I love to hear, because obviously when we touted your success a couple of weeks ago and we showed off all of your long-term investments, you know, they were all way, way, way up. So this is the first time we're actually diving into something that on the surface looks like it's on the way down, but you feel like the real competitive advantage there is, hey, it's global now, whereas some of these others had just been previously domestic. There's a real upside here. I mean, Nigeria, that would have been a blind spot for me. I would have had no way.
It was for everybody. And all of a sudden now everybody got someone. I don't know how long it's been or if you've been to Africa, but down there, everybody has they've skipped landlines. So everybody has their cell phones. So like, I'll give you an example. Like in India, I was there just a few years ago. I was working in the slums of India with a wonderful charity group. Everybody had cell phones there. And I came back and I told WWE, I said, we're going to have some problems with ticket sales over there. I said, because the Indian proliferation of video is not because people are moving into the middle class. It's because Ambani, the rich billionaire there, that has taken internet and made it available to the masses. So it's not like people have gotten richer. Internet's almost gotten free. And so people were getting cell phones, and all of a sudden they have all this, the first time they have something to do. Of course, they're going to watch tons of video, and people were mistaking that for being moved into the middle class. It was a real misconception about India, and it still is a bit to this day. But now in the rest of the world, Most of that is true, that more cell phone usage. They're just skipping landlines, though. You're seeing a lot more people move into the middle class, which is true in places like Nigeria. But because of that, they have these phones. They don't have a lot of other things for entertainment because they're still lower income areas. And so they have the ability to watch tons of video. They have the ability to do things like sports bet, which you say, well, they have money to sports bet. Yeah, because you can put $1 on a game. You can put 50 cents on a game, the equivalent in Africa. There's a lot of things you can do that you don't go down to your corner bookie anymore and have to do, but you have the opportunity now to sit there in your home, watch the game and sports bet. And that's what's happened in Nigeria. It's just absolutely exploded. And that's what you're seeing in a lot of places around the world. Look, the betting market in the United States this past year was like 78.3 billion, something like that. That counts online, that counts casinos. So that's not really fair. That's, say, $50 billion is your casinos, your big MGMs, your Caesars, your Tropicanas, things like that. It's about 24 billion is what it is as far as sports betting, which includes iGaming, which is about 12 billion of that. About half of that is sports, is iGaming. You're going to see that double in the next 7 to 10 years. You're going to see revenue double globally in the next 7 to 10 years as well. So you got a market that is doubling at least in the next 7 to 10 years. And Conrad, that's not with somebody coming online. I say somebody, something coming online. If Texas and California come online in the next 10 years, that could make it a 4 or 5x instead of a 2x. It's a huge deal. That's considering that what you have now stays exactly the same, which it won't.
So your expectation based on growth is just expansion of licensing. When it's legalized in more states, obviously the business grows, in lockstep at that point.
Yeah, you're looking at online casinos right now. Basically, your blackjack, your roulette, things like you want to play. You have Connecticut, Delaware, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and West Virginia. I mean, you have those few states. All you got to do is just start adding a few states, and you're incremental. It's kind of like, say, Coke or Pepsi. Coke or Pepsi, they get so big. The way that you can add revenue is not get more people drinking Coke. People are already drinking Coke. People are already betting in these states that it's legal. It's to add a SKU. And in this case, with gambling, it's adding a state, or globally add a country or a continent. And that's what you're going to start seeing. The reason you're going to see that is because there's such a debt problem in the world today that they have to figure out how to pay off some of these bills. Sports betting, you go down to, say, to Texas or to California, people are betting, but they're betting online and betting online offshore. Now, it's technically, I say technically because they don't prosecute people, at least the bettors. It's illegal, but now they go after like bookies and things like that. So people are allowed to do it pretty much with impunity. So they're already betting. It's just a matter now of, do you want them betting on an offshore book where you don't get the tax revenue? Or do you want them betting with MGM or with DraftKings or with FanDuel or with Flutter or somebody else where you get the tax revenue? And people now all of a sudden are going to take the old religious thing and say, you know what, maybe sports betting isn't so bad. They did it for the lotteries. They're going to do it for sports betting too.
I live here in North Alabama. I'm just a few minutes away from the state line of Tennessee, but I know a lot of guys who will drive just over the state line and log into their phone and place their bets. And I know that that's not unique to Alabama and Tennessee. I've got friends in the Northeast who tell me they do the exact same thing. I'm curious how you think how widely adopted that could be. Like, have you kept up with the Mavs story and what's going on with Mark Cuban and his sale? And now I guess the new owners thinking they may be looking to sell, because I think their entire plans hinged on, let's make the new Mavs stadium more of a gambling hub, have high-end resorts and high-end shopping, but it all hinged on the ability to allow gaming there. And I guess that doesn't look like that's going to happen in the immediate future. So maybe they're looking to unload it. Have you kept up with that? What do you think?
I have, yeah. And it's same thing with Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones built that wonderful facility. In fact, you and I were up there after one of your StarCast, sitting there having a wonderful evening before we both flew out. And Jerry Jones thought the same thing. He wanted to have the casino there. Well, the problem is Texas legislators, like any other legislature, they're incompetent. They're saying they're going to pass this sports betting. It's been put on the back burner again. It probably won't come up in 2026. It'll probably be 2027 before it comes up because of the way the legislature years fall. It's crazy what's going on. And a lot of businesses are planning stuff that is not working out because the legislature is just like anywhere in the world. These douchebags, these douchebags, politicians are douchebags and incompetent.
All right, you're getting
a Freudian slip.
Here.
You know, I sit there trying to call the politicians, and it just douchebags just comes out. I can't stand those guys, man. They're just buffoons. You know, we always think that there's some cabal that's like behind everything. Maybe they're just idiots. They're like a turkey. They wake up in a different world every single morning.
Just so I'm clear, John, and maybe our audience doesn't know, you're in the shadow of Washington, D.C. right now in Maryland, are you not?
I am, yes. I'm within almost a stone's throw of D.C. line. Yeah, so I'm just across the line, less than a quarter mile from D.C., so I'm surrounded by these idiots. I mean, surrounded by them. I hate even going out in public. I feel like I need to take a shower. I'm a wrestler, and I feel bad about going out with those guys.
All right, we've talked about Flutter. What else do you want to talk about? I'm sure you got some other companies.
Oh yeah, DraftKings. DraftKings has been fantastic. You know, DraftKings is another one. The 52-week high and low is around 53. The low is around 21. It's around 22 right now. Depends on what it opens up today. But it's the same thing. Has a PE multiple around 14, which, as I said, the market multiple is around 24 right now because of the mainly the AI and the tech trade that's going on right now. You got a $37 price target on this thing, so it's up well over 50% from where it is. At least the price target is. I think that's reasonable. All these are getting hit because of the prediction market, which we can go into in just a minute. But DraftKings has about a $10.7 billion market cap and about $6 billion in revenue. And they for the first time, they have made a profit, which is a big deal. It's the pressure that's coming from the prediction market. But one thing that DraftKings is doing, kind of like MGM, and I'll get to MGM in just a minute, is betting kiosks are starting to become more and more pronounced. So DraftKings does not have casinos. So when you look at, say, casinos, and say you look at, say, Caesars, that has a market cap of 3.7 billion, but revenue of 11 billion. You wonder why the difference there. And you wonder why the difference in, say, DraftKings, which is 10.7 billion market cap, 6 billion in revenue, half the revenue, double the market cap. The other side is a third of the market cap, 3 times the revenue. It's because of all the physical structure that goes with Caesars, goes with MGM. DraftKings is a software company. It's just simple software. So when you see a deal being made, like with Buffalo Wild Wings, which was MGM, a fantastic deal. This is what you're going to start seeing, Conrad. This is why I would be very bearish on casinos right now, very bullish on software stocks that have gambling, because you can be able to go into Buffalo Wild Wings where it's legal and sit there and bet on sports and go up to the kiosk and bet on sports and get your money back from that kiosk. Now, when I was talking to my wife about this today, who's a financial analyst, she said, "Listen, old man, people use their phones for money." Yeah, they do. But the gratification of going into a sports bar, sitting down there and betting $50 on that game, and when that game ends, if you win, getting that $50, you don't get quite 50 because you got to pay VIG, but right at $50, and be able to pay for your meal with that is huge. It's why people enjoy playing blackjack in person, getting the cash, getting the instant gratification of winning. This is going to change sports betting and sports completely. It's also going to change casinos, because now you can go to your Buffalo Wild Wings. You'll be able to go to your Hooters. You'll be able to go to all of your different sports bars soon and start betting on these kiosks, which is a big deal. That's one of the reasons I like software companies like DraftKings.
How do you think that deal structure will work out? I mean, I know this is all hypothetical and you're just freestyling right now, but you don't assume that DraftKings is going to buy, for instance, Buffalo Wild Wings or vice versa. They would have some sort of licensing agreement where there's some sort of shared revenue and mitigate the risk from the restaurant side or something like that.
That's right. I got a buddy that owns some restaurants around here in the DMV. They call it the DMV, not the Department of Motor Vehicle. Thank God, they're as incompetent as the politicians. And I got to go there today to get my car inspected. So hopefully they don't hear this before I go. But my buddy has a bunch of restaurants here in the local area, and he has some kiosk in his restaurants. He gets simply a little percentage of the bets, and he doesn't do anything. He has no risk, zero risk. He just gives people food, booze, has the TVs up. People go in there and place their bet up to about, I can't remember the exact amount. It's around $600. You don't have to record anything that you bet, which is another big deal, because forget about whether you're cheating on taxes or not. You don't have to report it. It's not, if you're betting $25, it's not that big a deal. But if you're doing it with a sports book, there's a record of it. You can get a 1099. There's certain things that you might or might not have to do. But if you're betting there and you're betting cash in one of these kiosks, you just get the money and you either win or you lose, and you pay for your meal. But the proprietor of the restaurant just gets a little bit of vig out of the bets that go through with zero risk.
I love that, and I could totally see that. I mean, I don't think we're that far away from stadiums having the exact same integration. I think there's been stadiums that have been built where they hope that you could have like micro transactions or micro bets. Like, for instance, if you and I were at a football game, hey, I think the next play is going to be a run, and we could hit a button and make that bet right then. Like, micro betting, I think, is going to be like the next big level up for all of sports gaming. Don't you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. And people love that for the reason of simple gratification. It's a simple endorphin rush of winning a bet. You sit there and watch a football game, you bet on it before the game. You have to wait till the very end, even if you know the outcome. Even if it's a 24-0 game with 2 minutes left, you still have to wait the 2 minutes. You have these micro bets. It changes how you watch sports, because now you can sit there in your seat. You can say, I bet the next one's a pass, and you can make that bet right quick, $10, $25, whatever you want to make, and you either win or lose. It changes the way you experience sports. And these arenas are making huge bets on this. And companies that have software like DraftKings, like MGM, even though they have a lot of physical, which I loved MGM as a stock, by the way, casinos, they're making huge bets on this as well. They're going to come out really well on this. This changes sports completely.
I totally agree. I mean, listen, if we're being honest, there's certain games, like my dad's my sports buddy. We watch a lot of sports together, but I know there's certain games and certain teams he wants to watch, and the rest he doesn't care about. He's not invested.
Right.
But if he could watch football and use his, what we would call football IQ, because listen, everybody who watches a game is like, oh, here's what they should have did. Why did he do that? And so that's just the nature of our fandom. So the idea that we could hit a button and guess right and then be rewarded for being right, that's exciting.
Yeah, and also, like, you got 4 minutes left in the quarter, you can bet whether somebody scores in that quarter. I mean, you can look at how the trends are going in the game, and if you're a big sports guy, you generally kind of know that one team maybe has a chance of scoring. You can bet on whether they score a field goal, whether they score a touchdown, or whether they score at all in that quarter. I mean, we're changing the way we watch sports, and it's huge for everything. As far as live TV, it's huge for arenas, and it's huge for these software companies that really don't call themselves software companies, but that's what they are.
Well, speaking of huge, we should thank today's sponsor, Blue Chew Gold. They want to show you something huge. It's the newest innovation from the #1 chewable ED brand. This ain't your grandpa's little blue pill. This is the 4-in-1 beast that's setting the gold standard for performance. We're talking 2 ingredients for blood flow to keep that rocket pumping, mixed with apomorphine and oxytocin to turn up the arousal and connection in your brain and body. Blue Chew Gold dissolves under your tongue, and it works in as little as just 15 minutes. That means you can get it on quicker and stay in the game longer. Elevation without hesitation. This is peak passion and peak performance in a single tablet. And ladies, if you're listening, send your man the link and make him a trophy husband with Blue Chew Gold. Make your life easier by getting harder and discover your options at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Get 10% off your first month of Blue Chew Gold with the promo code JBL. That's promo code JBL. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast. So, John, a moment ago, you were teasing that you wanted to talk about MGM. Let's talk about MGM. We've talked about some software, but I'm familiar with the MGM Grand right there in Las Vegas. And I think they own even some along the Mississippi coast that I've enjoyed, like the Beau Rivage and others. Chat me up. Why is MGM on your list?
Yeah, MGM is fantastic. They have a wonderful casino here that's just north of D.C. It's actually in Maryland. Maryland actually wraps around, if you know the geography here, which I did until I moved here. It wraps around D.C., and so to get there from here, I have to go through D.C. and up to get to the MGM casino. It's a great casino and does unbelievable business. But yeah, MGM is the old casino. that also now is getting into the software as well. And I like MGM because of so much that they have. You're able to spread across cost because they do such a good well with their land-based business, even though land-based to me is, I'm more bearish on that than I am on the software companies. But MGM is the one that signed the deal with Buffalo Wild Wings. And that is a revolutionary deal of what they're going to do. You know, MGM is the same thing. It has a high of 40, a low of 25, stock down trading, you know, around $30. It's, to me, it's a company that's has done so much and has been so good, and it's being punished because of Polymarket and Kalshi. So it has a PE of about 16. I keep mentioning the PE because that's the barometer that you simply use. There's a lot of more things that you want to look at. But MGM has $44 billion, $42 billion in revenue per year, about $8.7 billion market cap. So again, much more revenue than say DraftKings, but the margins are not as high because a lot of it goes into their land-based casino business, which is fantastically run. And they do a lot of the UFC events out in Vegas at the MGM. Terrific facility.
What's interesting too is just to see how much the MGM stock has rebounded just today as we're recording. I mean, obviously it's up over the last week or two, but just today there's been great news and a lot of movement on MGM. Any other gambling stocks we want to run through?
Yeah, I want to kind of mention real quick, you know, Penn Gaming has been a disaster. You know, did the deal with Barstool Sports, and for whatever reason, didn't work out. Thought it was a good deal with Dave Portnoy.
Let's time out right there and just spend a little time. I'm sure some of our listeners aren't familiar with that story. Can you just break down what the deal they did with Barstool was and how Portnoy got a hold of it again? Because I think it's one of the greatest stories in the history of sports and business. I mean, what a story this was.
They spent a fortune getting content. So what you're seeing with a lot of these sports books is you're seeing customer acquisition cost go into celebrities. So customer acquisition costs, like for offshore sports books, they will give you, like from Krakow, from Costa Rica, these offshore sports books that are illegal in the country. But again, they don't prosecute people that are just betting. So people do it. But they have acquisition costs of bonuses. So you give $500, you get $500 credit. Is how they're doing with offshore books. They don't have that many people that are endorsing it because it's a really gray area. They've actually prosecuted people for this, for endorsing offshore books because you're endorsing offshore gaming. So there's a real issue there with celebrity endorsements. There's not in the United States. That's why Kevin Hart and LeBron are doing those fantastic commercials that are out there, and why so many people, they're using so many celebrities for customer acquisitions. This goes back to Penn Gaming. So what they wanted Dave Portnoy and Barstool Sports to be their front book, their front video, and all they want to do is have them push Penn Gaming. When they bought them, they had buyer's remorse for some reason. You know, Portnoy's a huge star, and they know exactly what he is, and he's been very successful. They buy him for $500 million, something like that, right? It was, I mean, it was several $100 million that they.
January of 2020, they invested $163 million to buy.
I'm way off, $163 million.
No, but they came back in 2023 and they closed the deal. So February of 2023, there was an additional $388 million. So we're saying $500 million invested. Again, let me remind you, $388 million in February of 2003. Now, fast forward 6 months to August of 2003. I guess the stock had not been performing the way they hoped. The deal hadn't worked out. Penn thought, wait a minute, there's an opportunity to lock down ESPN. Let's go do that, but we can't do both. So somehow, after investing $500 million, including $388 million 6 months prior, they sell the doggone thing back to Dave Portnoy for $1.
Unbelievable. One of the greatest transactions ever. Dave Portnoy, you were possibly the greatest investor of my lifetime. That is freaking unbelievable. Unreal. And he got the whole property back in $500 million.
It's 6 months later, John. Like, it's the greatest turnaround. I mean, wow, what a story. But you're still bullish on Penn. Talk to us about this.
Yeah, I like Penn. They've got a good they're trading like they're going into bankruptcy is what they're trading like. They still have a great presence. They still have some pretty good software. I think somebody probably ends up buying them. I don't see how they can run the business. Anybody who would deal a deal like that should not be running a business. I mean, good Lord, what a disaster. I mean, that makes the AOL Time Warner merger look brilliant compared to what this is. This was horrible. But I think Penn right here is, I don't know how you can go that wrong with it. I'm not going, if I put money in it, I wouldn't put much in it, but I think it's worth a few shekels to put some money in there, because I think somebody ends up buying this company and getting their presence that they have in different places.
John, that does bring about a good question, because we've talked about some various price points today, but like Penn, as we're talking right now, is about $13 a share. So if you're really trying to, as we say in the South, hit a lick, some guys would be inclined to say, hey, if I've got $10,000 to invest in the stock market, boy, I can get a lot of shares at $13 a share. I should go all in on Penn. But you said maybe not that much. What would your investment strategy be? And does this represent an opportunity that you get excited about when you see that share price really, really affordable?
Yeah, and what I would do is, what I look at is what is a percentage of my portfolio. You know, I never invest more than, say, 5%. I try to stay around 3 to 4% of my portfolio in a certain stock, just to limit risk. And again, it's the share price. If this share price, if they took the shares, half the shares off the market right now, the stock price would double, because you take half the share off the market. Right. So it's $26. That doesn't make it a different company just because it's $26 as compared to 13. That depends on how many shares you have. So if you have a $100 company and you have 10 shares in it, it's $10 a company. But if you have 100 shares in it, it's $1 a share. It sounds like it's a lot cheaper. It's not. It's the exact same company. So what you got to look at is, you know, the PE multiple, and what the overall multiple and the valuation of the company is. And I think the valuation is actually pretty good. I mean, share price is low. The PE is around 7.8. It's less than half these other stocks, for good reason, because it's a shitty run company. But I think there's a chance that the company gets bought.
Wow, I love to hear stories like that. It's a pretty shitty company, but it might get bought. So
that's right. There's a chance it might get bought. They're morons. I mean, anybody who would do that deal with Dave Portnoy, and this is not on Dave Portnoy. He did his part, and he came out like a rose. Congratulations to Dave. They had this guy that's this firebrand that, you know, that draws people. That's what they wanted. And then all of a sudden they had some type of buyer's remorse and thought they could go a better offer and get something somewhere else, and they didn't get it. I mean, that's a bunch of morons that did that deal.
Any other gambling stocks we want to touch on today?
Yeah, I do want to talk about Polymarket and Kalshi right quick. And the reason is they're not publicly traded companies, but this is why all these stocks are down. So Polymarket and Kalshi are two prediction markets. You can go on there and you have peer-to-peer betting. And this is huge. This has changed everything, because it changes your tax policy as well. So if you lose money on Kalshi, it's like losing a stock. And because of the new One Beautiful bill that President Obama pushed through, which is what the name of it is, at least what they've called it, you get a 60-40 split, as far as 60% is going to be long-term capital gains, 40% is going to be on regular income, but you're able to take it off of your income. There's certain things you can do as far as deductions you cannot do with gambling losses, which also changed in the One Big Beautiful bill. Because of that, it's treated completely different. But the main thing is, Conrad, this is peer-to-peer betting. It's hard to believe this is legal, but it is. You got some really smart people that have figured this out. You pay about 1 to 1.75% VIG with this. So it means I put up a bet. I want to bet on President Trump running again in 2028. Or I want to bet on X. I want to bet on Newsom becoming the next president. Or I would just want to bet on the New England Patriots winning the Super Bowl next year, whatever that is. I put a bet out there anonymously. You, if you like it, will accept it. They have zero risk. They're both about $10 to $11 billion companies. But this is what has destroyed sports betting stocks, is Polymarket and Kalshi. Then we just make this bet. It's a simple transaction between me and you. They take a 1 to 1.75% VIG, and the bet's done, and the bet's paid for. But here's the big deal, Conrad. So if you're betting with, say, a local sports book, and you're betting, say, odds. This is why odds are so important. Say you bet minus 105, which is really good odds. That means you win $95.24 every time you bet $100. But let's say an average bettor, a pro bettor, This is where you're going to really get into this. Bet, say 20 bets a day. Okay. So that's 600 bets a month. Now, if you win half of those, say just for numbers, you win 300 bets. Now, the difference in the VIG that you have, and I keep calling it the VIG, that's the juice that you pay, is about 1.5%. Now, you're paying, say, about 5% for minus 105 odds, but it's hard to get those. But say minus 105. That's over 3% difference, which means that every 33 bets times that 3%, you got 100%, which is a full bet. So if you've won, say 150 bets over the month, lost 150, the ones you lose with 150, you bet $100, you lose $100. You bet $100 on minus 105 odds, you win $95.24. So you're winning. But with these bets, because every 33 bets, you've got another full bet that you've got to you, you're gonna make out of this the extra, say 10 bets a month off this, based on 300 bets. So about 150 bets, you're gonna make about 5 bets a month. Okay. Now you extrapolate that times 12. Okay. So I'm getting somewhere. Now it's 60 bets a year. That's huge. So by just having 3 1/3% VIG, betting 300 bets a month, winning 150 bets, half of them, you're going to win 60 extra bets a year based upon just better juice. Now, what does that equate to? The average bettor that is a pro bettor, maybe $5,000 a bet. That's $300,000 extra a year they make by using Polymarket. That's why it's so big. But now if you take it to minus 110 odds or minus 120, it's a multiple of that. Getting these better odds is huge. And it's something that the sports books cannot match. They're going to come down, but they're paying Kevin Hart. They're paying LeBron James. They're paying all these guys to get customer acquisition. They can't match this. They're going to try to sue them. They're going to try to take them to litigation. But this Polymarket and this Kalshi, this thing is absolutely 100% changing the world as far as what sports betting is going to do.
And that's primarily just because of that, minimized juice or VIG. And I do think we should probably explain that. Like, I know some of our listeners probably aren't familiar with that language, but the idea is, to say it in a business term, that's the profit for the casino. So
yes.
Like an uneducated person may think that, well, the casino hopes that everyone loses. And in theory, sure, that would be great. But the reality is some are going to win and some are going to lose. But if you're getting margin from both sides, whether they win or they lose, now you've mitigated your risk. You've guaranteed profit for the house, so to speak. But basically what you're suggesting is, like Polymarket, their margin is 1/3. So their cost of doing business that they pass on to the consumer, call it maybe a commission. If you were buying stocks and you had to pay a commission, their commission base is literally 1/3 of all their competitors, right?
That's right. And if you extrapolate that over the course of 365 days, a lot of these guys are betting, this is thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars per big time bettor. Now, just average bettor, this is hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars. So to give you an example, a lot of people say VIG doesn't really matter. When we talk about VIG, we're talking about juice. Those words are used interchangeable. So you have a minus 105 odds. So that means you bet $105 to win 100. The $5, like you said, is what the casino gets. That's where they make their profit. Okay. Now, if you bet $100, you get $95.24 is what you get. But now so many people look at this and they will see odds like minus 105 or minus 120. You're like, what's the difference? If the Cowboys win, the Cowboys win. I'm betting on them. I win money. The difference is huge. So if you bet $100 with minus 105 odds, you get $95.24 back. You bet $100 with minus 120 odds, you get $83.33 back. That is a $12 difference. It doesn't take much to start losing money because you can't win that much. You've got to have these better odds. And if you have those better odds over the course of a year, it is huge, the difference. Sports bettors would never take minus 120 odds if anything's better. But too many people look at it and think, oh, look, winning is winning, which is true. If you don't win, nothing else matters. But if you're winning and you don't have good odds, you're not going to make money. And that's where Polymarket and Kalshi come in, because their odds are just absolutely fantastic.
Well, man, I learned a lot today just about the betting market. I'm not nearly as active in that world as you are, so I'm excited to have learned a little bit about it. Any other best practices you want to share about stock investing today? I know that, the two betting markets we just ran through, like Polymarket, they're not publicly traded, but it does give some context to why maybe some of these other ones we ran through are showing a down year. But you sort of laid out why long term, those are still great calls.
They're still great calls, and they're getting into the prediction markets. They're changing everything. They're allowing peer-to-peer betting. FanDuel's doing it. Fanatics is doing it. Fanatics has their own sports book. They're getting in the prediction markets as well. And so you're seeing a lot. It's changing the way sports betting is going. And that's why I like the software stocks better. I say software stocks, not your big casino buildings and your big structures, but your companies that can change really quick, like a DraftKings, because they're going to get in the prediction markets. There's no doubt about it. And that's going to change everything. There's going to be a ton of lawsuits going back and forth, but it's a very seismic shift right now, which is great actually for the retail sports bettor, because you're going to be able to make a lot more money because of competition.
Man, I love learning from you. This has been a lot of fun. I want to learn some people up right now about their dogs. I'm talking, of course, about Better Wild. John's a cat guy. I'm a dog guy. I've got 3. I didn't mean to have 3, but every now and again I come home and there's another one there. Thanks, Mrs. Thompson. But I will tell you that I've learned a lot about what my dogs need and don't need. Specifically, I just thought my dog Ginger, she just liked to scratch her ears and chew her paws. It was like her thing. Well, it turns out that's not true. That's not a normal dog behavior. In fact, those are signs of allergies. You see, allergies in dogs flare up when the bad bacteria takes over the gut, because 90% of your dog's immune system lives in the gut. Just like humans, dogs need probiotics, or good bacteria, to strengthen their gut health and calm an overactive immune system. That's why my wife and I started using Better Wild Allergy Relief Soft Chews for our pups. This is a supplement designed to support your pet's allergy defense system by strengthening their digestion. These are the first and only chews with the ancestral advantage wolf probiotics. Yes, this is derived from your dog's mighty ancestor, the wolf, all in an effort to help restore a healthy balance of good bacteria in the gut. These Better Wild Allergy Supplement Chews also include 4 key ingredients. Yes, you have that premium blend of wolf probiotics, but you've also got L-Sacchii, which is a postbiotic derived from kimchi that's been clinically proven to reduce the itchiness and the redness in just about 2 months with daily use. They also have some salmon oil in there for healthy skin and fur, and some cholesterol to boost all of their immune function, easy for me to say, and fight off the inflammation. My dogs are happier than ever. My dog Ginger's getting up there in age, but we have noticed a major difference in her personality and her demeanor. She's got a better quality of life, and the only thing that's changed is Better Wild. Better Wild is committing to helping your dogs with science-backed, veterinarian-approved solutions that they can feel great about. And right now, Better Wild is offering our listeners up to 40% off your order at betterwild.com/JBL. Go right now to betterwild.com/JBL for up to 40% off your order. That's betterwild.com/JBL. And now, you know what, John, I think since we've talked about stocks a little bit, let's talk about housing. Specifically, let's talk about mortgages. I want to talk a little bit about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. It was announced not too long ago that they were going to be pumping $200 billion into mortgage-backed securities. Now, conventional wisdom would say, hey, if you've got $200 billion coming in, well, that means we can now have more demand, because in theory, the rates are going to come down. We didn't exactly see that. Maybe not the way we hoped. And the reason is $200 billion. Well, boy, that's a lot of money to folks like me and you. But in a $9 trillion market, it's not that big a deal. So we didn't see a huge difference there. But I do think it's still a positive thing, because I think that this represents more of a commitment from this administration to reduce housing costs and make home ownership more affordable and more accessible. One of the major things they did is Fannie and Freddie recently removed their minimum credit score requirement. Now, this happened back in November, but it quietly ran under everyone's radar. Now, down at your local bank or credit union, they may still say and impose, and it is their prerogative, especially if it's a portfolio loan, to say, hey, you've got to have a 660 credit score or what have you. But Fannie and Freddie, for as long as I can remember, for several years, have had a 620 credit score minimum requirement. They did away with that in November. Now there is no minimum credit score. That's worth repeating. There's no minimum credit score. Once upon a time, when I first started doing mortgages 25 years ago, if someone called in and they had, say, a 530 credit score and they said, hey, what can I get? And I would say an apartment guide. Let's get a plan together and I'll see you in a year. That's no longer the case. Now what they're primarily focusing on, John, is the housing payment. The idea is Fannie and Freddie have said, you know what? It's not smart that we've allowed how people paid their credit cards decide whether or not they'll pay their mortgage. Most folks have their mortgage automatically drafted out of their bank account. They set it up when they first close, the money comes out, they get used to living their life without it. And a lot of folks who have a really terrible credit score, like a 530 or a 540, it may be, as we would say in the South, eat up with delinquency. You're late on a car payment, you're late on a credit card, but your mortgage payment, well, that's been drafted right on time every month like clockwork. Fannie and Freddie said, let's make it easier for those folks to get better terms on that home loan. This is great common sense decision making. I absolutely love it. And they have gotten rid of the credit score minimum requirement. I personally have closed loans for borrowers in the 530s and 540s. That seems like that would, in theory, be a subprime loan, but it's not. They've paid their housing payment perfectly. So their history of the last 12 months shows no delinquency. This is not a risk to Fannie and Freddie. It just boosts their portfolio and allows them the opportunity to grow. But the new thing they've just rolled out, and I can't believe this is real, is they've changed the debt to income requirements. Now, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have usually hovered around 50%. They don't want your debt to income to be more than that. Now, FHA would actually recommend that your total debt to income is around 41%. So let's just talk about how we get to debt to income and what the heck that even means for a minute. Let's say your household income is $10,000 a month. So maybe you make $5,000 a month, your husband makes $5,000 a month. You guys have a gross monthly income of $10,000. Now let's say that your bills are $4,100. And when I say bills, I mean your new mortgage, I mean your car payment, I mean your credit card. I don't mean the things that aren't listed on your credit report. So like your utilities or your groceries or your gas or your cell phone, those things are typically not going to be listed. But, American Express, Discover, GMAC, all of that sort of stuff is going to be listed on your debt, on your credit report. Well, if you have $10,000 worth of income and you have $4,100 worth of bills, including your mortgage, your debt to income ratio is 41%. Now that's like a best practice in lending for as long as I've been doing it. 41% is ideal, but don't go over 50. I can't believe this is real, but Fannie Mae just rolled out a new product called Refi Now, and they allow you to go up to 65% debt to income. Now this to me is speaking directly to the folks who are overwhelmed with consumer debt. They're maxed out on their credit cards. They're struggling making their minimum payments. Maybe they're stuck with some cars and maybe they're upside down because they bought when there was some scarcity, and the used car market has just totally collapsed. So there's a lot of people, more cars on the road with negative equity right now, maybe than ever before. So it's not like they could even go trade that car and get a cheaper payment. They just feel stuck. Fannie has now said, hey, that's okay. 41% is not the limit anymore. As a matter of fact, 50% is not the limit anymore. Now you can go up to 65%. This is a real commitment from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, because all we're talking about Fannie Mae's Refi Now product, Freddie Mac has an equivalent as well. 65% debt to income is huge. People who are really suffering, who are really struggling with high interest rate credit card debt, and maybe they're feeling like there's more month at the end of the money, this is a huge deal for you, especially if you've been behind. Once upon a time, your debt to income ratio may be high, but you still had to be on time. But the combination of there's no minimum credit score on this increased DTI loan either, Refi Now. So even if you're maxed out and you're struggling to make ends meet, if your house payment has not been more than 30 days late in the last year, Refi Now is the second chance and the lifeline you've been looking for. I think this is another great step by this administration to try to help the homeowners in America. Don't you think, John?
I do, yeah. And this administration, I know from personal experience, from people I know working with it very close to me, working with the housing issue, they really want to get this housing straight. You just have young people not buying homes right now. And the average home buyer said last week, a second home is 61 years old, person buying a second home. That's a huge difference. A government wants people in homes because you're spending more in the home. You're buying cars, you're buying furniture, you're buying TVs, all kinds of things, so much more so if you're living in a multi-family home or if you're renting a home, especially if you're renting a home. And so the government's trying to figure this out badly, and they're giving heck of a deals to try to get people to start buying homes. It's one of the reasons they're trying to get interest rates to come down.
Home ownership is great for America. It's worth a Google. There's a lot of studies out there that even show that dads are more likely to stay in the home, meaning there's 2-parent households, moms and dads, if home ownership is a component. And I think that is criminally underrated. But
Yep, I do.
If you can keep people together longer in the same place together longer, that's better for America. It's better for families. It's better for finance. It's better for municipalities. I'm really encouraged to see that, hey, they put 200 billion with a B in, and now they've gotten rid of the minimum credit score. Now they've extended debt to income opportunities. There's lots of rumor and innuendo that in May, when we get our new Fed chair, maybe we're going to be following more of President Trump's directives and push those rates even lower. I know that sounds like a great idea, but there's no guarantee that's going to happen. But there is a guarantee that if you've got credit card debt and you're feeling stressed out, there is help available to you at savewithconrad.com. You may not realize it, but you've got a friend in the mortgage business. Later this year, I'll be celebrating 25 years in the mortgage industry. I have helped thousands of families just like yours take control of their finances, short-term and long-term. We want to hear from you. What are your goals? Where are you trying to get to? And now let's get a plan together of what that looks like. Maybe you've maxed out your credit cards and you just need some monthly payment relief. We're routinely helping some of our listeners save up to $1,000 a month. And they even get to skip their next 2 house payments. That's right. You won't have to make your March or April payment. You're done until May 1st. And maybe you've maxed out those credit cards. Well, you should know that not only is it hurting your credit score, but you're also paying a ridiculously high interest rate that's not tax deductible. Whereas the interest you pay on your house, it is tax deductible. Or maybe you're like a lot of folks, and when you bought your house, whenever you gave the penny tour to new visitors, you would say, now one day we're going to upgrade this bathroom, or someday we're going to put new countertops in here. You could go ahead and unlock the potential equity in your house with a remodel. And you can do this fast and easy at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket. We want to be your mortgage advisor for life. So we don't say no, we say not yet, but here's how. You need a plan, especially if you're in an apartment. Don't just go house shopping. Figure out exactly what house you should be looking for, not based on the most you qualify for, but with the down payment that you're comfortable with the monthly payment that you're comfortable with. There's no application fee. There's no credit report fee, just real answers, real solutions, real guidance from people who've been doing it forever. Give us a shout, 888-425-0105. Call us toll free. Drop me an email, Conrad@savewithconrad.com, or get a quick quote. Even talk to a live person right now at savewithconrad.com. So John, we got a lot of great questions that came in. Let's do some questions from our listener audience here. Coach Rosie says, I have a financial question for Layfield and Conrad. I've become fully vested on my teacher's pension after next school year. I'm thinking about retiring early, but I'll lose $5,000 a year on my pension. Should I stay one more school year or bet on myself? I plan to take on a second career and double dip. And I have a wife and 3 kids to think about when it comes to college and insurance prices. That's a great question. Should he stick around one more year for that extra $5,000? What would you do, John?
Josh, this is a great question. This is a real personal question as far as what makes your life better. Is your life better to making a bet on yourself and you want to get out and you're fed up with your job and you're ready to go now? That's different than, okay, what is the best thing for you financially? Because, financial, no matter what it is, you got to do what's right for you mentally and do what's right for you and your family. I've instructed I've advised a lot of guys when they talk about whether they're going to retire from wrestling or what they're going to do or whether they're going to leave school early and go pro and different stuff. That you got a pretty good opportunity here. My opinion, this is just my opinion. Now you do what you think's best for you, but this is my opinion. I would work the extra year. I would make the extra $5,000 a year in pension. That's a huge amount of money. Huge amount of money you're going to make for the rest of your life. That's huge. And I would start spending as much time as I could building that second business during this time. So instead of working extra hours of what you're doing or your job or thing, take off, spend some of your vacation, start planning for that second and use this year here to set yourself up where the day that you're done, you go right into that second business. If you do that now, it's going to be tough. It's going to take a few months of transition. Make that transition now over the next 12 months. You got the extra pension money. You got money coming in all for the next 12 months. The minute you get done, you're able to go into your second business. That's what I would do.
I think that's fantastic advice, John. That's what I've always done whenever I was advising someone in sales, because I do get hit up about that all the time. Hey, I think I've got an opportunity to do sales. I want to quit my job. What should I do? My advice is almost always the old Gary Vaynerchuk rule. Go ahead and do your job right now. And if, hey, you get to clock out at 5 o'clock, you're on their time until 5. But at 5:01, now you're on your time. Start working on building your business. And my advice, if there wasn't a pension involved, has always been, when your passion project, your after hours, your next job that you're so excited about, or your next career, your next new business, whatever that entrepreneurial spirit in you is telling you to do, when that is outpacing your original income, that's the time to switch.
That's
Now,
right.
you don't even have that pressure now. At this point, if you know you've got the extra 5,000, to John's point, I don't mean to sound morbid, but coach, do you think you'll live another 20 years? Because if you live another 20 years, is it worth $100,000 to get a 1-year head start on your next venture? I would advise, let's start doing the next venture part-time right now and lay the groundwork for the next year so you can easily transition. But let's go get that guaranteed state check one more year. You think?
There's nothing better than, again, that guaranteed check, and also working on what you want to work on.
Yes.
Because you're going to be at your job. I'm not telling you to be rotten at your job, but when you're at your job, you're still going to be thinking about, okay, at 5:01, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this and that. So what? So you will go from being a great employee to just being a good employee. So what? They understand it's your last year. People are punching the clock their last year. I get that. I'm not telling people to be bad employees, but you're working on what you want to do. And I think it's perfect what Conrad says. You start planning it now, take that income, get that extra pension money, and then when you get done, 366 days later, that 366 day, you start up with the business that you love and you want to do.
By the way, if you're a young person, I want to recommend that if you're not exactly sure what to do, pull a Coach Rosie. Have 2 acts. I see a lot of guys who do this in the military, and they'll retire out of the military, and they're still young enough to have a second fabulous career. But now they've basically got 2 incomes. Coach Rosie set him and his family up to do that. And if I had it to do over again, I may have made some different decisions. I'm glad it worked out the way it did. I'm thrilled with my life. But the idea that I could be getting paid right now for things I did 25 years ago, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And I got 2 college roommates, that are on my text thread. I text every day, and they're the same way. They retired early. They got their 20 years in or 25 in with the state trooper's office in Texas. And now they got another, they work as they want to, because they got the full pension. They're still young, and they kind of work whatever they want to do. It completely opens up your life.
Let's do another one here from Darren Staley. Darren, appreciate you listening to the show. He says, is people treating homes as an investment property contributing to higher rents and housing scarcity? What is the biggest barrier to new homes being built? And why do I think strict zoning laws have a lot to do with it? John, I'll take a stab at it, but I would love to hear your answer. I think that primarily what you're conflating is the idea that institutions have been able to buy so many of these individual homes. Now, to be clear, I'm not suggesting that, like a great apartment community that was my first community here in Huntsville was Lily Flag Station. There's probably 600 units in there. Respectfully, one guy probably doesn't own that, a corporation does. But you do have the mom and pop investors who will own a 4-plex or a duplex or something like that, and lots of single family housing. What changed is during the pandemic, it felt like it was the new gold rush. And a lot of these major corporations like BlackRock and others, they started coming in paying over list price, all cash, because in a perfect world, they would love to get people to rent everything. I know that sounds silly, but let me just explain. Remember once upon a time in your living room, you had a DVD shelf or a Blu-ray shelf, and years before that, you had a VHS shelf. And I bet if you're John or my age, you used to have a little music room, or you at least had like a CD stand, and here's racks with all your favorite CDs, or maybe you kept it in your console of your car and you'd flip out a magazine full of those. We don't own any physical media anymore. So instead of buying these CDs individually one time and owning them forever, well, now we all just pay a monthly fee to watch them. I mean, that's what it is. So we're renting the movies that we used to own. And I think that was the strategy for housing. Now, some of that is backed off. And I know this administration, and it feels like we're pumping Trump today, and I don't mean to, that's not my intent. But when he came out and said he would like to make it to where single family homes can only be bought by families, I thought that was a game changer, a potential home run from a stick-built house. But that's not to take away from the high-end communities that are apartments and things like that. I think those are always going to be owned by major corporations. But I think the institutional investment into single-family houses, That is what has raised the rents. Of course, the thing that we all have to acknowledge is there was a major cost of goods boost because the supply chain collapsed. And as a result, people started charging more money, and that new normal pricing has just set in. Like the price of hardwoods pre 2020 and now are drastically different. What was the difference? We were able to prove in 2020 and 2021 that people would overpay for hardwood. Well, now they're continuing to. So you've set a new precedent with what those new thresholds should be for your cost of goods. So it's more expensive. I think if there is one thing that could get new builds going, and John, you're going to be way more in tune with this than I am, but I feel like you've got to give some more substantial tax breaks to the developers. The way they've been able to depreciate that versus taking it year one, just one minor adjustment like that by this or the next administration, that would get new starts booming. What's your take on Darren's question where he wants to know what's the biggest barrier to new homes being built?
Yeah, it's. I think the biggest tax break is a big deal. You know, people really bitch about tax breaks, but George Mitchell was the guy who discovered how to frack and about the oil fields that they thought had been depleted in West Texas when I grew up, and they thought that the oil was not recoverable at all, and they had the Barnett Shale underneath the Dallas Fort Worth, and George Mitchell, because of a George Bush tax break, figured out how to sideways drill, frack this stuff out of there. Now you have more oil in Saudi Arabia. So tax breaks done well, tax breaks get a really bad knock, because, what are you doing to give it tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires? Man, that is giving Texas more oil than Saudi Arabia because of that tax break. Sometimes tax breaks can be very good, done the right way. And I agree with you, Conrad. A tax breaks on these developers is a good thing and needs to be done because they need to be able to write off some of that money and to be able to do something like build these homes. As far as the Trump thing with the single family homes, it's probably, and I don't want to get into any politics, but it's probably not going to go through because some of his big donors are these guys that are doing this. So sometimes he floats trial balloons, and those trial balloons, when they come back and they don't go like, well, they go like they go. I don't think he cares how they go. He just kind of floats trial balloons. That probably is not going to happen. The problem with housing is these young people just aren't buying homes. And it's just a mindset that's just different. The world has changed completely. The young people are just not simply buying homes right now. It is a massive difference of demographics that are in their homes from, say, 27 to 40 is the difference right now of people getting the homes in their first home. That's huge. And I'm not sure how that changes. And the one thing Conrad talks about, developers building more homes and having more inventory for people is one way to possibly do it. Well, and probably the best way.
When it comes to the tax deduction, I mean, specifically what I'm talking about is let's make it affordable for those guys to bring in roads. Like most people don't think about that, but I'm saying there's more to being a developer than, hey, I'm going to buy some land and then just sell lots. No, you've got to get the utilities out there. You got to get the road out there. You got to get curbs and gutters out there. There is a long investment period. And I think we're asking developers to depreciate that over a greater period of time. Whereas if they could take that depreciation faster, they're more apt to do more of it because they seemingly get their money back in the same calendar year or close to it. And I think, that is a pro tip that I think could be changed. I've recently seen Grant Cardone.
And the thing is, Conrad, is they're going to get that break anyway.
Yes.
Are they going to get it now or are they going to get it over the course of several years? So
28 years. Yeah. I'd much rather have it now.
The government's not getting the money anyway. So people say, oh, we want to give them an extra tax break. No, we want to restructure it and make it better for them.
Well, and let's just say this too. If we're not going to give tax breaks to people who are making housing more affordable, who deserves one instead?
That's right. That's right.
Are you helping the greater good? And if as a result of this tax break, more families are in more affordable homes, then I think we should consider that. But I also think the idea, like if you or I were classifying ourselves as real estate investors, then we could go ahead and depreciate an acquisition and just write it off on our taxes in year one. Now, if they made one change like that to where now you don't have to be a professional real estate investor, you could just be a regular guy who has high income. Maybe you're a doctor, maybe you own a law firm, whatever it may be. But now, instead of you trying to play the rate game of should I sell or should I buy or whatever I should do, it makes way more sense to say, hey, if I need to buy another house every year, let's do that. Now, I know some people listening will say, well, that's crazy. But we all know someone who's a small business owner who at the end of every year goes and buys some big old heavy truck or SUV or something that weighs more than 6,000 pounds because they want that write-off and they want it to count for that year.
That's right.
If we could treat housing the same way, So it's, hey, I don't want to have to lose a big portion of this money to taxes. I'm just going to go buy another house. They could go ahead and use their cash by the end of the year, purchase the house, and then once the calendar rolls over, go get another loan. Who cares if the interest rate is higher? Look at how much you saved in taxes by making the acquisition. It allows you to kick the can as a regular homeowner. And now maybe folks would trade homes like they trade cars. I know a lot of people who get a new car every 2 years, but who gets a new house every 2 years? But if we could make that more common, people would decide whether or not they should or shouldn't sell, less based on what the appreciation was and what the interest rate was, and more about what the tax implications are. It would get things moving that are otherwise at a standstill.
Yeah, and what you're doing for America is huge. You know, no matter what you do in a home, you look at say the yard, just for example. Whether you hire somebody to mow your yard or whether you have to buy a lawnmower to mow your own yard, you have to spend money into the economy to take care of your yard. And everything in a house, you have to spend money to take care of it. When you're not renting, when you're renting, it's a fixed finite amount, and the landlord does it. But it's different when you're the homeowner. You know, people spend a lot more money. This is good for America. The more home ownership we have, it's better for our country and better for our economy.
Let's do another question. This is from Topics Everything podcast. Question for John. Any advice for adults that have disability like Asperger's syndrome, Down syndrome, autism, etc., to save money, make money? And would John be interested in helping those adults who have these disabilities like Asperger's and Down syndrome to save money? That's a good idea. Are there programs out there like that, John?
There are, and I didn't have a chance to. I looked up some of them on the way out here. There's so many programs out there that do help people with disabilities. It's just a matter of where you are and what state you're in, because certain states are better, but all states do something. So it's just a matter of checking with your local governments, checking with your state governments. You know, these guys have pretty good websites. I'm really down on politicians, but they do a lot of things out there. There is a lot of money out there, and they never cut this money off because they want to buy votes. So there's going to be money out there. So it's just a matter of looking for it and finding it.
We will, we'll find some more details and be sure to include some of that in the description for today's show. Cupcake Garcia says, any stock picks for low rollers out there? Many of us can't grab big positions in $60 plus stocks. Could John recommend any solid plays in the 15 or less range so we could stack up more shares? Boy, it's almost like I foreshadowed this question. We talked about a $13 pick earlier. How often do you look at these? You know, I'm hesitant to call it a penny stock, but the old dollar a holler picks. How often do you look at those? How risky are those? What would your advice be to somebody?
Incredibly risky. I tried years ago to kind of invest in some dollar stocks, and I did okay. I just wasn't very good at it. You know, it's tough. You know, the reason they're penny stocks, the reason that they're not valued very highly. But again, I want to remind people, you know, if you have $100 company and you have 10 stocks, 10 shares, it's $10 a share. If you have 100 shares, it's $1 a share. That's the exact same value. You're just getting 1/10 of it. You're just spending less. So it's the stock price doesn't matter as much as the valuation of the company. So maybe you just buy one share. You know, maybe you buy a few shares instead of buying 100 shares. Feels better to buy 100. Believe me, I understand that very well. But it's just a matter of what your dollar's worth that you can spend. And if you find a company you like, pick out the dollar amount that you like. And a lot of these stock trading platforms will have a calculator where you can simply look at it and plug it in. It'll tell you exactly how much you can buy with that.
Well, this was a lot of fun today. We hope you guys enjoyed having
Conrad, one more thing. I want to talk, real quick. I want to tell people about buying stuff that is out of favor. We're talking about buying gambling stocks today. So I want to show people this. This is my large cent book. Okay. I'm the ultimate nerd here. I went down yesterday and bought all of these large cent coins, which are $17.93 to $18.57. I didn't buy a ton. I've been buying them for a while. But the reason I've been buying these, Conrad, is because silver and gold is so freaking high. Nobody cares about these. I've been getting incredible value on all types of pennies and nickels and you name it. I was on the road recently and I went to a gold and silver shop and they had bags of wheat pennies, 30,000 wheat pennies. I bought every one of them, and I got them for probably a third of what they were worth because I asked the guy, because they're a 50-pound bag of wheat pennies is 34 pounds. So I had I think six bags, so 30,000 pennies, $50 each. I had all these bags. I said, what do you want with those wheat pennies? He goes, man, I'm making so much money off gold and silver. I don't care anything about those. I hadn't even been searched. I said, well, I'll buy all of them from you. And so I bought all 30,000 wheat pennies, stuck them in my rental car, drove back to DC with them, and got a heck of a deal on them because nobody cared about them because all they're doing is buying gold and silver because it's the one it's the big hot thing. My point is not to buy coins. If you want to buy coins, I get it, buy coins. My point is buy things that are out of favor. Because when you're buying things that are out of favor, sometimes there's a reason they're out of favor, and you got to figure out if that's the case, or if it's just something else that's so bright and shiny that it makes these have really good value. And that's the kind of investor that I've always been my whole life. But that's at least what I've been doing recently with coins, buying up all kinds of different copper and nickel coins because nobody cares about copper and nickel right now.
Listen, I'm asking a personal question, but this is a blind spot. I'm trying to learn. How much do you think the value of those wheat pennies were when you bought them, and what were you able to get them for?
Oh, I got them for, I'll tell you exactly what I got them for. I got them for $300 for a 50-pound bag. I got the 1943 steel cent. So in 1943, they didn't have copper, so they made the steel pennies, which look silver. So 1943 is a complete, I have 15,000 steel cents out of that say. And I bought those for $750 for the $50 bag. I just looked online. A website had them for $1,550, the exact same one. Now, some of them are $1,000 to $1,200, so I didn't get probably 50%, but I did get a heck of a deal on them. And those wheat pennies, I went through them, which was actually fun for me. It's like therapeutic for me with my little magnifying glass going through them and doing all that stuff. There were so many 1909 to 1919 that I figured out that bag was probably worth around $800 to $1,000, and I spent $300 on each one.
Man, what a deal. Good for you. I love that we're telling stories like that because
and the best part was I was at the hotel and I didn't know what to do with them. So I put them all in like the spare tire thing, because they had a bag, canvas bag with a dollar sign on it. It looked like I robbed a bank. So I had all these bags in the back of the car. So I brought up the wheel thing, the spare tire, and stuck them all in there. So now I've got these bags in there. It looks like I'm traveling like with the mafia or something. I pull it up and I show Ron. And I go, look, Ron, I robbed a bank. He goes, that's awesome. I was just great. I told him what they were. He thought it was fantastic.
I mean, you could have came home and filled your pool with it. It's like Scrooge McDuck and went swimming or something. I mean, I
would show you, but I can't lift them. I've got literally 30,000 wheat pennies. I got them in big Coke jar, like Coke bottles that are huge like this that you put coins in. But I've got a total of like 65,000 wheat pennies now that I've bought over the last year because nobody cares about them because they're all buying silver and gold.
My goodness. I learn something new every day. I hope you guys do too. We want to give you a chance to get that autographed book from John. If it's not too much trouble, go right now to Have More Money Now. That's our YouTube. Just hit the subscribe button and post a screenshot that you subscribe to our YouTube. Tag us in it at Have More Show, and we're going to give away another autographed copy next week. John, you and I have talked about wrestling for a long time, but I sure am having a lot of fun talking about money. This has been a blast, man.
It's been a departure. It's been fun. I don't get to talk about finance much, and so it's fun to be able to talk with you, who's built an incredibly successful mortgage business, which I've told you many times. It's got to be a great thing because when you do something for people with a mortgage, you get them into a home. That's a good thing. So they're always like, oh, Conrad's my guy. My dad was a community banker. And my dad got people into businesses and homes and things like that, in a different way by loaning them money. And same thing. I'd run into people years later, go, man, your dad got me into a business. Your dad got me into a home. That's a pretty cool thing to do.
That's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate that. Looking forward to helping more families just like yours at savewithconrad.com. And hit us with those questions on Twitter at Have More Show. And we will see you next week right here on Have More Money Now with John Layfield.